when Sunak officially becomes our new Prime Minister, he will become the wealthiest man to ever lead the country. I'm a little bit sick and tired of people banging on about how wealthy this guy is. Good for him, I say. So what if he went to public-private schools? So what if he went to, Oxbridge? So what if all of these things may well be true? I mean, it's a good thing, isn't it? Do we not want someone who's talented, who's competent, who's gone out in the world and actually made a bit of money? Akshata Murthy is his wife. They're sitting on a combined fortune of around 730 million quid. It appears to me, anyway, that since they've been included in the Sunday Times Richest, it's exposed a lot of people, seemingly on the left, who just hate the rich. I can't believe that we live in a society where wealth creation would be such a bad thing. And if you actually look at the word association as provided by Savanta ComRes, what people think when they think of our soon-to-be new Prime Minister, the biggest word there is rich. However, just keep that on the screen, because the other words there are clever, capable, reliable, OK and rich. I would love it if people described me as reliable, capable, clever and rich. I would love that. There's certainly never anything that anyone has ever described me as. But there we are. So we're going to go to Chris Hopkins now, as Political Research Director at Savanta ComRes. Thank you very much. Those are all good things, aren't they? Why does it matter if people think that Rishi Sunak's rich? A, he is. B, good for him.
I think the potential conflation, Patrick, is whether rich equals out of touch. And I think that's going to be the real key now for Rishi Sunak. And yeah, you pointed out a lot of very positive words there. You're capable being, that was a massive standout one for me. And we've done these a lot with previous leaders and other candidates in the original Conservative leadership contest. And there were very few that looked as positive as that one did for Rishi Sunak. But I do think that the rich could become an issue, especially if that is construed as him being out of touch, particularly when so many across the country are struggling. Just that, does this man understand what it's like? Can he put himself in the shoes of the ordinary person?
But sorry, do we? I understand. I understand that. I do understand that. And I was listening to, dare I say it, another radio station earlier on, and someone did call up and say, well, he's never been poor. Well, hang on a minute. Look, these days now, you've got to be an ethnic minority who doesn't know what gender is. You've got to have at some point been poor. You've got to, I mean, goodness gracious me, all these boxes that you've got to tick. I mean, he can't help A, what he was born into, or B, what he's earned. Do you think that now people, hate money and hate wealth in this country?
I don't think that's the case at all, but I do think that that people do want to see a little bit of themselves in their politicians. I think that that's possibly why Rishi Sunak's ethnicity is brought up, because representation matters, and ultimately there aren't that many normal working class people like you and I, Patrick, in Parliament, and I think that possibly does matter. I think that Rishi Sunak also is a very extremely wealthy man. He's very much to the extreme end of that scale, and I think that those perceptions may matter. I think ultimately none of it will matter if Rishi Sunak gets on, does the job, and does end up delivering for the UK public. But I think he is possibly starting, given the economic outlook that the UK does have at the moment, and that millions of people up and down the country will be struggling. I feel that there is a potential barrier to him helping, possibly, because he is seen to be so extortionately wealthy, and therefore not necessarily being in touch with the plight of the ordinary person.
I could argue, though, that realistically, a man of his wealth, A, doesn't need to work, and B, if he does work, he could get a much better paid job in the city somewhere. He could probably buy most of the city. He's wealthier, as it turns out, than the king. So he doesn't really need to be Prime Minister. In some ways, the implication could be that he cares more about politics. Or is there the whiff of someone power-hungry here, do you think?
I think there might be that whiff a little bit, but I think ultimately the public definitely took to Rishi Sunak during the pandemic, and I think that therefore he did build up quite a lot of good credibility during that period. I think it was only really towards the back end of the pandemic, really, in 2021, possibly even at the start of this year, where all of the tax affairs of his wife started to come out, and his popularity did start to tumble a little bit. But ultimately, I think people do trust him, and as I say, his word cloud there, despite the rich, and there were a few other negative words on there that tended to lend themselves to possibly how he stabbed Boris Johnson in the back, or is perceived on that. But I still think the fact that capable was on there, the fact that good was on there, the fact that even okay was on there and was as big as it was, is a pretty good start for a new Prime Minister. And I think you should be pretty pleased given what it would have looked like had it been Boris Johnson or Penny Mordaunt.